What if I told you that the Sakir circuit could be Ferrari's turning point in the 2025 season? What if right now, when many are beginning to bury their hopes, the prancing horse is preparing its most ambitious counterattack yet? Today we're going to talk about what's happening in Bahrain and why Lewis Hamilton believes that this time, Ferrari could finally begin to respond. Stick around because we're going to break down the most important updates to the SF25, the internal drama at Maranello, and the decisions that could change Hamilton's destiny in his debut season with Ferrari. And before we dive in, do you think this upgrade package will be enough to put Ferrari in the fight against McLaren and Mercedes? Let me know in the comments. I want to know how you see it too. Ferrari arrives in Bahrain suffering from one of the worst feelings an elite team can experience in Formula One, that of helplessness. It's not simply about poor results, but a scenario that combines internal frustration, external pressure, and a growing sense that the 2025 season could slip away before even reaching Europe. And all of this has a name and concrete figures. After the first 3 races of the year, Ferrari has barely 35 points. For a team that aspires and is obligated to compete for the World Championship, this figure is a crushing blow. Even more so when the leader of the standings, McLaren, already has 111 points. A gap of 76 points in so few races is not only worrying, it is an alarming sign that something structurally isn't working at Maranello. But we're not just talking about results here. We're talking about the raw performance of the car, the SF25, which has already shown worrying signs since pre-season testing. What was initially interpreted as isolated setup issues has turned out to be a series of persistent technical deficiencies. Constant understeer in medium and slow corners, loss of traction on corner exits, and lower than expected downforce compared to his main rivals. These aren't vague perceptions, they're facts reflected in every long stint, every qualifying session, and every radio message from the drivers. Lewis Hamilton, a newcomer to Ferrari, has had a contrasting start to his season. His victory in the sprint race in China was undoubtedly a glimmer of hope and a testament to the talent he still has to offer. But that one-off result stands in stark contrast to what happened on Sundays, where the Briton has been unable to capitalize on that potential. Saturday's victory was celebrated, yes, but what happened on Sunday was a nightmare. A disqualification due to excessive wear on the underbody of his car revealed not only setup errors, but possibly deeper flaws in the measurement systems and the development of the car's ride height. And if we look across the garage, the situation doesn't improve much. Charles Leclerc, despite having competitive pace at times, has also been unable to take the SF25 beyond a 4th-place finish in Japan, the team's best result so far this year. For a driver who already knows the team and the car well, this shows that we're not facing an adaptation problem, but rather a clear limit of the car itself. What's more serious is that these technical problems are also translating into a morale crisis within Ferrari. The team's statements have oscillated between forced optimism and defensive caution, and the media is already beginning to question whether Fred Vasseur really has full control of the technical project. Because when a team like Ferrari, with all its history, resources, and talent, can't even consistently fight for podium finishes, the question isn't whether something is failing, but how many things are failing at the same time. The situation is so critical that Bahrain isn't just about one race. The credibility of a project is at stake. Ferrari needs solutions to come now, to translate them into immediate performance and to restore confidence not only in the drivers but in the entire team. Because one thing is clear, if there's no reaction in Bahrain, the championship train could have left even before Ferrari finds its best version. And that, in a season as competitive as 2025, would be unacceptable. Amid the critical situation facing Ferrari, the Bahrain Grand Prix has become the stage where the team has decided to take its riskiest gamble yet, introducing a comprehensive package of updates to the SF25 in the hopes of reversing the course of a season that, so far, has been marked by errors, disappointments, and a clear technical deficit compared to its rivals. And at the heart of this technical transformation is a component as fundamental as it is controversial: the car's floor. The new floor developed by the aerodynamics department led by Diego Tondi is not simply a superficial change. It is a structural evolution aimed at correcting multiple deficiencies that have hampered the car since the first race. The intention is clear: to generate more efficient downforce, improve stability under braking, and reduce understeer, one of the aspects most criticized by drivers in recent races. This modification is also a direct response to one of the biggest technical errors made so far this season: Lewis Hamilton's disqualification in China due to excessive pad wear, a direct consequence of not finding the optimal ground clearance. However, what makes this change truly interesting is not only its technical impact, but the internal debate it sparked within Maranello. While Tondi pushed for the immediate introduction of the new floor in Bahrain, key figures such as Loic Serra and Fred Vasseur himself advocated a more conservative position, concerned about the car's lack of consistent balance. Serra warned that if the SF25 didn't yet have a stable foundation, adding new variables to the aerodynamic package could exacerbate the problems rather than solve them. It was a high-voltage technical dispute, reflecting the nervousness currently running through the team. The final decision, however, was made with urgency, and it was Hamilton who publicly confirmed that the team had opted to implement the full package in Bahrain. This includes not only the new floor but a series of additional modifications. A revised rear-wing monopylon which seeks to improve straight-line efficiency without sacrificing cornering support, a redesigned brake intake to improve cooling in extreme conditions, and adjustments to the engine and suspension maps aimed at optimizing traction and handling in slow corners. Each of these improvements responds to a specific need identified in the first few races. Most importantly, all will be evaluated in real time, as Ferrari has planned to conduct an A/B comparison program during free practice, testing old and new versions to validate the impact of the modifications. In fact, it has been leaked that up to 4 different configurations could be used in the opening days of the weekend to gather critical data that will allow for quick decisions before qualifying. But it's not all about technique and data. These types of decisions also involve a political component and media pressure. Ferrari not only needs to improve, it needs to show that it's reacting. They need to prove to their fans, their investors, and above all their rivals that they remain a major player in the sport. The pressure is such that even internal disagreements have come to light, and that's always a sign that tension within the team has reached dangerous levels. Bahrain therefore won't just be a technical test, it will be a test of character. Because if this update package doesn't meet expectations, the consequences could be deeper than a failed race. They could signal the beginning of a breakdown in the team's trust in its technical direction. And even more delicately, they could ignite the fuse of impatience in a driver like Lewis Hamilton, who didn't join Ferrari to see another inglorious season pass by. This weekend, the SF25's floor won't be the only thing being tested. The entire Ferrari structure will be. The Bahrain Grand Prix is not just a race on the 2025 Formula One season calendar. For Ferrari, it has become a technical, sporting, and emotional trial. It's the stage where all the tensions accumulated in the first weeks of the championship come down to a single question. Is this team capable of reacting in time? And that answer could have consequences far beyond Sunday's result. Bahrain won't decide the title, but it could decide whether or not Ferrari remains part of that conversation. After the scandal in China, where both cars were disqualified for fundamental technical violations, minimum weight in Leclerc's case and lower shoe wear in Hamilton's, Ferrari's reputation suffered a double blow. Not only because of the lack of results, but because of what those failures transmitted to the rest of the paddock. Disorganization, execution errors, and a seeming inability to deliver the basics. And in Formula One, when you get the basics wrong, you pay for it with points and prestige. The secure circuit is, therefore, the laboratory where all the corrections Ferrari has developed against the clock will be put to the test. There's no room for half measures here. If the aerodynamic updates, new suspension solutions, changes to the floor, and improvements to ride height management don't deliver immediate results, not only will the technical crisis deepen, it will also crack the internal cohesion of a team that has already shown signs of strain in its decision-making. Lewis Hamilton, in his first season with Ferrari, is the visible face of that urgency. He didn't come to Maranello to undergo a rebuild. He came to win. His victory in the Chinese sprint was a statement of intent, but the subsequent disqualification exposed the team's structural limitations. If he doesn't at least fight for the podium in Bahrain, it will be very difficult to prevent a climate of frustration from setting in that would tarnish his project with the most iconic team in motorsport. And then there's the case of Charles Leclerc. The Monegasque driver, who has already experienced too many ups and downs with Ferrari, is beginning to face an uncomfortable narrative, that of a talent wasted due to the lack of a serious project. If improvements don't translate into competitiveness, even his loyalty to the team could begin to waver. Because if this season has proven anything, it's that, by 2025, there are at least 3 teams, McLaren, Mercedes, and Red Bull, that are operating at a level far above Ferrari. We mustn't forget another key factor: media pressure and public opinion. Every Ferrari mistake is amplified by its history, by its symbolic weight. When Ferrari fails, it's not just another team that stumbles. It's the flag of a legacy that has written eternal chapters in the history of this sport. And that's why Bahrain will be more than a race. It will be a test of credibility. If the SF25 doesn't respond decisively, the consequences could range from an accelerated technical restructuring to a rethinking of the project's leadership. Fred Vasseur is in the spotlight. Diego Tondi, Loic Serra, even those responsible for strategy and physical preparation, know they are being evaluated not only on results, but on their ability to reverse a crisis that threatens to derail the team's aspirations before even reaching the halfway point of the calendar. Bahrain is the place where Ferrari must show that it's still alive, that it can still learn, adapt, evolve, that all is not lost. Because if the improvements work, if the car finally delivers stable and competitive performance, the story changes. Then yes, we can talk about a rebirth. But if not, if the same mistakes reappear or if the pace remains insufficient, what is only pressure today will turn into a storm. And in Formula One, when a storm descends on Maranello, its effects are often felt for years. That's why Sunday in Bahrain isn't a race for points. It's a race for the soul of Ferrari. After everything we've analyzed today, it's clear that the Bahrain Grand Prix represents much more than just a race on the calendar. It's a crossroads for Ferrari, a critical test of its technical ability, its solidity as an organization, and, above all, its true will to return to competing at the highest level. At this point in the season, the Italian team has no room for mistakes, excuses, or half-baked decisions. What's at stake in Sakir isn't just a good result, it's their credibility, their internal stability, and the trust of millions of fans around the world who continue to believe, despite everything, in the glorious return of the prancing horse. Today we saw how Ferrari has come into this weekend bearing the consequences of a turbulent start, marked by structural failures in the SF25, internally questioned technical decisions, and a lack of consistency that has allowed teams like McLaren and Mercedes to escape in the standings with an authority that would have seemed unlikely just a year ago. We also explored the key updates they brought to Bahrain, from the new floor to the rear-end aerodynamic redesign, including fixes that attempt to resolve the ride height issues that ultimately disqualified both of their cars in China. And this is where engineering, pressure, and pride intertwine. Because Ferrari, more than any other team, doesn't compete only against its rivals. It competes against its own history, against the weight of what it represents. Every race, every weekend, is another chapter in a narrative that has been written for more than 7 decades. That's why, when things don't go well, the impact is deeper, more media-driven, more emotional. What happens in Bahrain could set the tone for the 2025 season. If the update package works, if the car responds, if Hamilton and Leclerc manage to transform this new potential into concrete results, then the narrative could change radically. From frustration, it could turn into hope. From stagnation to rebirth. But if nothing improves, if the pace remains inconsistent, if the mistakes persist, then we won't just be talking about a temporary crisis. We'll be witnessing a symptom of something much deeper. Something that could threaten the stability of the entire Maranello sporting structure. So now the question is yours. Do you think Ferrari will be able to turn this situation around in Bahrain? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the end of its 2025 season? Let me know in the comments. I want to know how you see this story. And if you enjoyed this analysis, subscribe to the channel and activate the bell so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.